We've seen numerous bipartisan legislation that would ban lawmakers from trading stocks after allegations that members have not only failed to disclose trades under the Stock Act, but accusations of insider trading. A House committee met this week to look at some of those proposals. For now, I want to welcome in New Jersey Congressman Jeff Van Drew. Congressman, great to have you with us on this. We know that some of these proposals, which include banning not just lawmakers, but from their families, they would also require elected officials to place their assets in a blind trust. What is the plight of this legislation, do you think?
Well, I don't think it's going to go through in its full fruition, as you mentioned. I don't think all that's really going to be happening, to be honest with you. Let's really talk about this, though. There are some individuals that have obviously taken advantage of insider trading. They should be in trouble. The law should be enforced. We have a law against that, and that law should be enforced, whether they are hearing information at a hearing or privately from people that they're having conferences with. You cannot use that information to go forward and then invest your money. So that's clear, and it should always be clear. Secondly, though, if a legislator, if a congressman or a U.S. senator is doing as others do and is just investing in mutual funds, investing in their children's education, investing in their retirement, and not doing anything wrong or, inappropriate, that's a different story. So my thought on it would be is that the penalties should be worse for Congress than it is even for others, because we are entrusted with the Constitution, we are entrusted with the law, and therefore we really should be penalized if we do insider trading or something of that nature. Other than that, I think that we should obey the law, enforce it, and still allow even congressmen to have their rights. So with that follow-up, what aspects of this legislation do you support? I would support, and it would be sort of my own form. I really, there's so many pieces out there, as you just mentioned. But what I support is actually stricter enforcement of the current law, number one, that this cannot be done. Number two, when we see something untoward happens, when somebody is involved with a particular company in a congressional manner, and then all of a sudden makes huge investments, that needs to be investigated, and that should be something that is written in the law. So that, I think, is important. And number three, as I said, when a congressperson or a senator does something that is inappropriate, like insider trading, more than anybody else out in the real world, they should be punished, because they're there to protect and to the Constitution, to protect the laws, to protect the people. And rather than do that, they're abusing it. But I don't think we should limit or stop all investments made by people who are in elected office. Congressman, I want to pivot to some other news. We saw documents and bank statements this week linking not just Hunter Biden, but President Biden's brother, James Biden, to corporations and individuals with ties to the Chinese Communist Party. That was part of a joint GOP investigation, which Senator Grassley was a part of. I asked whether he supported appointing a special counsel to conduct a probe. Listen to this.
We have laid out a lot of suspicious activity that ought to be followed up by somebody to see if there's any possible compromise on our policies with China, to see if there is any criminal activity.
How might we see the House investigate this if Republicans win back a majority in November? Oh, they're going to investigate it vigorously. Jim Jordan will be the new chair of Judiciary. I would certainly hope to participate in some way with this. This is wrong. This is what we really do know, and people are afraid to say. First of all of this information for a long period of time was squelched. The media wouldn't tell the truth. They held it back. Big tech did. Just about everybody did. Government did. And what we found out, there was no Russian collusion by President Trump. That was supposed to be the big issue. That was nonsense, and we have found out already, the Durham report and others. But what do we know is that there's something very wrong in that computer. We do know that there is a real tie
between Biden, and I mean Hunter Biden, his brother, and the president. The president is involved in this up to his ears, and the president needs to be taken to task for it. These people were involved with the Chinese communist energy companies, and we need to really look into this. This is going to make Watergate look like it was a child's game. This is serious, serious stuff.